So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that is really challenging to understand, and it's pretty nuanced. And it's in the interview process. Who should you reach out to? Should you reach out to the hiring manager or should you reach out to the recruiter? Okay, so why is this an issue? Well, first things first, as a candidate, you are going to find yourself in the interview process seeking information often. So maybe you've had an interview and you're like, okay, well, what are the next steps? Who should I reach out to? Are they really interested in me? Am I a backup candidate? What is the likelihood of me getting an offer? What is the timeline on that offer? There are lots of different questions you might have. So you want to know who is the best person to reach out to. And that's what we're going to cover in today's video. Now, first things first, there are two different types of recruiters, and it's really important to identify which is which, because depending on who you're working with, it might change the answer on who is better to work with. So to be real straightforward and simple, there are two main types of recruiters. There are corporate recruiters, people who work for the company, and there are agency recruiters or third-party recruiters or headhunters. Now, there's the people who don't work for the company that you're interested in working for, but rather they are a vendor or a partner. So let's just say a company is looking for an electrical engineer. They have their own corporate recruiting team. But if for whatever reason they're not filling that role, they will often go with an outside external agency. And this is an agency that specifically goes and finds them people for these hard to fill roles and helps them fill the position. So again, these are two people who might have the same exact title, but their functions, their job are very different. Corporate recruiter only works for one company. They work for the company they're a part of. If they work for Apple and they're an Apple recruiter, all they do is they work on Apple positions. Whereas a third party or an agency recruiter or a headhunter, they work for a company like Manpower or Experis or Randstad or a number of different agencies, and they work on a variety of different roles. They work for a bunch of different clients, and they could be working at multiple positions for multiple companies at any given time. Now, we're gonna start with the agency recruiter. Now, my advice here is if you're working with an agency recruiter and you need answers, when is the next step? How close are we to offer? How interested are they in me as a candidate? I would always go with the agency recruiter first. And here's why. Agency recruiters get paid by the companies when they place a candidate. So as an agency recruiter, most of the time the way it works is if a company hires your candidate, the company owes you 25% of the first year's compensation. So what does that mean? It means their interests are closely aligned with yours. You want to get the job, they want you to get the job so that you can get paid. So they always sit on your side of the desk. They always sit on your side of the table. They're always negotiating on your behalf, and they want you to get hired. This is a simple truth of recruiting in the interview process. If you're working with an agency recruiter, they would much rather you get the job than a candidate that the company found on their own. So if they present you to a company and a candidate applies to the company and a corporate recruiter interviews them and they hire that other person who is not you, they will not get paid. So they want you to get the job. So if you're working with an agency recruiter, my first call would always be to them. If you have any sort of information, if you're like, okay, I've had an interview, when's next? I want to move to the next step in the process, reach out to the agency recruiter. They are most likely to act with your best interest in mind and help you move forward in the process. Now let's talk about corporate recruiters. Here it becomes a bit more nuanced because depending on where you're at in the stage, that answer might be different. So first things first, if you were very early on in the process, you want to be talking to the recruiter. If you haven't talked to the hiring manager yet, maybe you've just talked to the recruiter, you've talked to HR, maybe they've even told you who the hiring manager is. But if you haven't spoken with them, then early on, you definitely want to reach out to the recruiter. Even if the recruiter isn't responding to you, maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I should go to the hiring manager. If they don't know you, if they haven't presented with your information yet, you're unlikely to make any progress there. So early on, you want to go with the recruiter. Now, once you get a chance to talk to the hiring manager, here's where it becomes a little bit more difficult. If you talk to the hiring manager, you interview with the hiring manager, and you have a really strong connection, and they go, hey, it was great talking with you. If you have any questions with me at any point, feel free to reach out. At that point, you want to go with the hiring manager as opposed to the recruiter. Now, if you talk to the hiring manager and you don't seem to connect well, they're not giving you buying signs, and you don't really get an idea of how you stand with them, then you might still want to rely on your relationship with the recruiter, especially if you have a good relationship with the recruiter and you've connected. But If you interview with the hiring manager and you really hit it off, you're connecting, they say, hey, if you have any questions, follow up with me. At that point, absolutely, 100% unequivocally, you want to go with the hiring manager, because the reality is the hiring manager has the power, has decision-making authority, and the recruiter, no matter how much they like you, they cannot hire you. They will never make that decision. The hiring manager makes that decision. So if you have a good relationship with the hiring manager, you want to reach out to them. If you have questions about the process, about the role, then you want to reach out. Now, if there are things where you feel uncomfortable asking the hiring manager, then the recruiter can still be a good resource. In this situation, when you've connected with both, I really only recommend connecting with the recruiter under 3 circumstances. 1, if you just have a really great relationship with a recruiter, they seem really good at their job, and they're really thorough with communication, and you don't feel like you'll get that with the hiring manager, that's a good situation. 2, if you feel like you don't have a good relationship with a hiring manager yet, and you don't feel comfortable reaching out, that's another good reason. And then thirdly, if you talk to the hiring manager and they specifically tell you, hey, if you have any questions, reach out to the recruiter, they're gonna be the person to fill you in, then you also wanna do that. But in every other circumstance, reach out to the hiring manager. They're ultimately going to be the one who makes the decision and can move it forward the fastest because they have that decision-making authority. Now, one of the things you might want to ask about in the interview process are the hours, right? What are your hours like? Do you have good work-life balance? But this can actually be really challenging to ask because it might make you look like you're not willing to work hard, which is why I made this video. Because as a candidate, you definitely want to know what the hours are like, but you also really need to ask in a positive way that'll keep you in their eyes as a strong candidate who is willing to work hard and isn't looking for an easy job. You don't want that. That's not going to help you. So I am done here, but I will see you over here in this video that discusses that very detail. All right, see you over there.